What is happening, Night Nation? Jeff Sharon back with you here for Night Shift. We got yours truly. We got Eric Lopez. We got Bryson Turner. Nick Porcelli going to join us here to talk a little basketball in a busy week. We even had some football news this week, Eric, that we get to talk about a little bit. We got some moving and shaking in the coaching ranks at UCF that we have to break down. We've got UCF basketball. Baby. Yeah, I mean, we got UCF men's basketball rebounding nicely against West Virginia, I would say. Women's basketball still just scuffling, looking to gain a toehold in the Big 12. And we're going to talk a little track and field. So we got lots to talk about. By the way, thank you to you guys for picking me up while I was out. I had the double barrel last week, man. Oh, I've tested positive for both flu and COVID. Now, I'm vaccinated against COVID, but like an idiot, I didn't vaccinate myself for the flu earlier this year. Usually I do that around Thanksgiving, and it hit me hard on, I believe it was last Tuesday. Man, I got it bad. And I was able to recover pretty quickly, but that's why I wasn't on the pod. And I recovered in due time to do the basketball game on, actually it was Monday that I got, and then I was recovered in due time to do the basketball game this past weekend. So, like, first of all, thanks to everyone for the well wishes. I really appreciate it. Everybody on Threads hollering at us, black and gold banneret on Threads. And but man, let me tell you, it was some chicken soup for the soul seeing UCF basketball get the win over West Virginia. And I tested negative before that, just in case anyone was wondering. Okay, just letting you know. I'm still a little. If you were listening closely, I was still kind of a little. I was at 95%, I would say. But we had
Nick couldn't hear it. He was upset. He couldn't hear it. Right, Nick? There was from where he was sitting.
No, that's not the issue. The issue was for some reason the sound system kept going out, including during
speakers. Yeah. We had, I don't know what it is, man. Well, I think the speakers caught the flu too.
Yeah, apparently. And I mean, hey, shout out to the dance team. They were professionals. Even when the music stopped, they kept going and finished their whole routine.
What absolute ballers they are. I mean, fantastic. They ran the whole routine after. Because we had it playing. It was playing. And we're like, it's playing on the laptop. It's the speakers that cut out. Because they were like, what's going on? And they're absolute pros. And that's why they were top 10 in the country. All right. Let's get started. We got to talk about basketball. And all right. So here's my take. And Eric and Nick, I want to jam on this with you guys for a second here. So the latest on UCF, they get the win over West Virginia, 72-59. West Virginia, very up and down, kind of a mirror image of us in a way. They beat both Texas and Kansas, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And but I was a little worried about the hangover from the Houston game, Nick. And, because when you play a game like that, it was you could get beat twice by a team like that, especially the way you lost, where they get held. They get held to an all-time Big 12 all-time low in
Big 12 history.
Yeah, in field goal percentage, and still as strange as this sounds, only lost the game by 15 points. But they come back against West Virginia. Obviously, West Virginia is they're up and down, but you got to handle it, and I thought we handled that game pretty well. 72-59 was the final. Just some quick highlights on this one. I thought we did not – it wasn't like the most great all-around effort. UCF shot 22 of 59. They had 45 rebounds on the night compared to West Virginia's 34. So, again, we just dominated the glass. West Virginia hit 11 threes, including Josiah Harris hitting 5 of them. But it was one of those games where I kind of kept looking up. I was like, oh, man, feel like this game's getting close. And I looked up, and UCF was up double digits. And then West Virginia started getting close thanks to that three-point shooting. But we kind of kept them kept them at bay. Thanks to the defense. Highlights for UCF: 3 guys in double figures. Jalen Sellers with another quiet 18 points. It's amazing what that guy is able to do. Ibrahima Diallo is just a double-double machine at this point. 14 points, 12 rebounds, 6 of 6 at the line for Ibrahima, by the way, and 4 blocks on the night. 13 points on 5 of 7 shooting for Antoine Jones. And this is the other thing I think that was big, was it was good to see Antoine Jones play well over 25 minutes, because Shamari Allen went down, looked like he twisted his ankle. He wasn't having a particularly good game, but that did not look good. He had to be carried off the floor. He finished with 2 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, and 4 steals. Haven't heard any word on him, at least to this point. I think we're all just kind of crossing our fingers right now, hoping that it's not as bad as it may have looked. But if Allen is down for a given amount of time, I feel like it's good to know that Antoine Jones is ready to step in. He was 5 of 7 the other night. So, Nick, I want to get you in on this here, because, you know, it's nice to have a game where it looks like you didn't play your best in some areas and you still won it, right?
Yeah, I mean, wasn't it just nice to have a game where you just led the entire time and it wasn't stressful? And you can just nitpick, but still be happy that you won. That's pretty much this game. I mean, you pretty much hit all my thoughts that I was thinking of when you were in the opening monologue there. No, I can expand. I can expand on it. Like, the entire time I was watching it, you know, I was thinking, like, yeah, on paper this is a blowout. You know, it's a double-digit win. They're ahead of them all game. But the truth is, and I say this in my recap of the game, which you can find on blackandgoldbanneret.com. Cal's not here. I won't do the thing.
I got it. There you go.
You got it? Okay. But, like, it's a blowout, but God dang it, it should have been a lot bigger. Like,
what, you have something on a game, Nick? You shouldn't be.
I mean, they covered the spread. I mean, they covered the spread. It was an 8.
Yeah.
I don't care about the spread. I don't care about any of that. Okay? I'm just gonna say, look, I'm not gonna complain. They did their job. That's what you can say on offense. And like you said, some people had good games. Jalen Sellers had you said it perfectly, quiet 18-point game. So you ever like watch a game and like you'll like look at the stat sheet and you'll just be like, wait, he scored how many? That's how I felt like about Jalen's performance that day. But I'm sorry, like I got the stats here. They were shooting 37.3. They missed a lot of shots. Like, that game could have been a lot bigger. Like, I was expecting to start seeing the bench guys come in. But it didn't happen because they kind of like went on a run near the end, West Virginia, I mean, where like they kind of just managed to say it. They never like made it like so big where it was like, you know, who cares? Game's over.
I think they got it in within like 6, right?
I think so. Like, the big issue for me was like UCF kept going through all these like really long scoreless periods, like 2 or 3. Like the most notable one was at the end of the first half. I want to say they went like 3 minutes, 37 seconds without scoring, and that only ended after that buzzer-beating 3. Yeah, which needed because it looked like West Virginia was kind of starting to get back into it. But yeah, that's all it really was. In my mind, the real reason they won that game is the defense. I mean, they were so physical with them in that game. Like, West Virginia's coach even just straight up said it. Like, they were physical in that game and they couldn't take it. And that was their best player is Raekwon Battles. He was a non-factor in that because, well, they didn't play him that much in the first half, which I'm not exactly sure why. But then when they started putting him in, they out-physicaled him, and he got frustrated, which resulted in him complaining to the refs. And then before you know it, double technical,
double tech, and he got tossed. Yeah, that was like that. There was no like they did not hesitate on that.
When that happened, yeah, that play is like when I'm like, okay, this game's over because they got 6 straight. UCF got 6 points off of that after the 4 free throws, and then they hit a jump shot later. So that's really what killed it. But yeah, I don't know.
I love this. We're spoiled. We're complaining that we led wire to wire and won a Big 12 game at home. And I'm
not complaining, man. Hey, I'm only complaining. We beat West Virginia by 13 points. I'll take it.
Listen. Our next home game is against Baylor, who's like, what, 9th right now? We can't get away with this. We can't get away with
So here's what I will tell you. I think the shooting is what it is. That's who they are. They're going to be a streaky team. Unfortunately, at least I got to see that up close with the Houston game where they shot the 16% or whatever you mentioned, their record Big 12. They're not. If you're looking for them to be a 50+% field goal shooting team, I don't see that. Not with this team. But defensively, that's where they're going to win. Get some easy baskets off fast break points, second chance points, points off turnovers. I think they had 55 points combined just off those categories against West Virginia. That's how they do it. Is defense and then set up the offense that way. And look, that was an important win because West Virginia is getting better. They're getting healthier. But that's a game UCF, you got to win that at home to kind of maintain this momentum that's been very positive. After the split in the state of Texas, you beat Texas. Yeah, you lost to Houston. That's no crime in that. But you're now 3-3 in the Big 12, which I don't think anybody would have forecasted that. I don't even at all.
I know you didn't.
I don't think anybody did. Certainly not the college basketball media in the world and things like that. So 3-3 is fantastic, good spot to be. And but they needed to win that West Virginia game to kind of solidify that. And they did. They took care of business to do that. So that's what I would say there. I know wire-to-wire victory, never trailed. And they,
Listen, they're not sound spoiled. Yes, they did what they needed to do. And I know it's crapping on the offense, but I love the defense performance, specifically of Ibrahim Diallo. I mean, I think that might have been his best, well-rounded game. Offense, defense. He had, let me look at the stats here.
He set the tone early. He had 3 blocks in that first half.
Yeah. I would still put the Kansas game up there as his top, but this one was a good one, Nick.
I think he was the best player out there. Just when you look at every category, obviously Jalen was the highest score, but when you look at all categories of basketball, he was the best one, and he was the one that West Virginia's coach singled out in the press conference as just making it really hard for their guys when they try to drive into the paint. Which, I mean, he was the main reason. I want to say they had West Virginia only scored 16 points from the paint, not that many. It was mainly because of him, because he was just locking it down in there.
Josh Eilert, the interim head coach for West Virginia, who took over for Bob Huggins right before the season when Huggy Bear was fired, also mentioned that, and this is something that I see, and I think we do have to talk about this now, is how good the atmosphere was.
Oh my God,
the building.
Yeah. Okay,
it's been a minute since it's been that wild. These last 3 games: Kansas, BYU, West Virginia, especially at the student section. Eric, you can probably back me up on this. And we had almost 9,000 fans for West Virginia, but it wasn't, to me, it wasn't so much that as much as it was just how raucous it was in that building, especially when UCF jumped out quick. You had the 3, you had the dunk from Sellers. It feels like the mojo's back, right, Eric?
I mean, who would have thought people be excited to see UCF play West Virginia, Kansas versus East Carolina and Tulsa? I'm stunned. I can't believe that.
Well, listen, to me, the West Virginia game is really what showed me, okay, this team has its mojo and they're popular on the campus because, listen, the first 2 games, people are going to show up to that because it's Kansas and it's a ranked BYU team. West Virginia doesn't have that aura. So I was really curious to see, okay, who's going to show up.
On a weeknight, too.
On a weeknight. That's very important, on a weeknight. And we're nearly near 9,000 people again. I mean.
Well, I think I'll say this. The Kansas win set the tone. The Kansas win set the tone. Then you had a good crowd with BYU. Now you got West Virginia. And I think, too, if you're a fan, you're following this, you see every building in the Big 12 and how insane it is. That's going to feed off. You don't want to be the one team that doesn't draw in the conference. So I think there's it really is. It catches on. And I think certainly what they've done with the student section, which you, Nick, and Bryson, you 2 have discussed that at length, that's a factor. And look, it's a team that has played hard. It's been good games. What's not to like, as they say. I think there's a part of that. And you still got Baylor coming in. You still got the Texas Techs and the Iowa States. And I think this team has earned the fans coming to see them the rest of the year, and certainly the draw power that the Big 12 brings with those opponents in men's basketball in particular, which is the best conference in the sport by a mile. Right now, Joe Lunardi's got 8 to 10 teams going to the tournament from the Big 12. That I mean, this is the best league, and I think fans know that, and you're going to see good basketball here. So I think it's a combination of all that.
All that said, next up comes another road test, and this one against a familiar opponent, but a tough one nonetheless, Cincinnati. Saturday, 7 p.m. at Fifth Third Arena. This is another ESPN Plus Big 12 Now game. Since he comes in 30 in the upper 30s in Ken Palm, I think I saw a 32. UCF is 68 in Ken Palm. Cincy 37 in the net. UCF 67 in the net. Interesting how Cincinnati has rebounded here in the Big 12, and we know how hard it is to play up there. It's one thing to play in an unfamiliar place, like say Austin or Provo or Lubbock. It's another thing to play against a team on the road that's already familiar with you. We saw what happened the last time that happened, which was at Houston, and Houston took care of us. Nick, what to you is what do you want to see from UCF in Cincinnati as they head back on the road this weekend?
Well, I'll tell you what I don't want to see. I don't want to see them shoot like they did against Houston. That's a start, please.
Is that? I mean, can we say that that's an outlier?
We'll see. I mean, I'll say this. I'll expand on Nick's point. Get off to good starts on the road, which they have not. They have not gone off to a good start on the road.
Off to a good start, yeah.
And that's a key factor there, and that's contributing to the shooting that Nick's talking about.
I would like
in
to
the Texas game, they fell down early. Anyway, go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
Back on that, which, to be fair, shows that they can face adversity on the road. But maybe let's not deal with that this time. That'd be nice. I'll tell you what I do want to see. I'd like to see them carry over the physicality that they had on defense in that Cincinnati game. Make it real tough for them to drive to the paint. Like, again, I think defense is their biggest strength, and they just have to keep going at these guys. That's the only way they're going to survive, because these are almost every team in the Big 12 is just really high-powered offenses, so they got to take it to them.
Interestingly enough, Cincinnati is they come into this game having lost 4 of their last 5. They lost at home to Texas, lost at Baylor, beat TCU at home, but needed overtime to do it, and then lost at home to Oklahoma, and then they're coming off a 5-point loss to Kansas.
No slouches there.
Yeah, I mean,
welcome to the Big 12.
Yeah, welcome to the Big. But a classic Cincinnati too. Again, Eric, because look, 17th in Ken Palm in adjusted defensive efficiency. They're 5th in offensive rebound percentage on defense. So they rebound and they defend. Just classic Cincy, isn't it?
In a lot of ways, Cincinnati's returned back to what they are. In a lot of ways, they've always been a basketball school, going back to when Bob Huggins was the head coach there. And even before that, with Oscar Robertson was their star player there. And then, of course, they went to the Final Four with Nick Van Exel and company. It wasn't until recently when the basketball took a dip after Mick Cronin left. Mick Cronin had a good years there at Cincinnati. He left for UCLA, and they had a dip. And then Luke Fickell at the same time kind of took Cincinnati from a bottom dweller in football to the top. To making the playoff. So it was kind of, they switched roles, but now it's kind of returned back to normal, where basketball once again is having success, and football now is back at the rock bottom to the point where they've become UCF's farm system to get players. So I would say this is kind of the return to normal for Wes Miller and Cincinnati. And, they were a shot away from beating Texas. That was a buzzer beating game. They were right there. Kansas was a big Monday game, and they only lost by 5. So this is the thing we got to learn in the Big 12. Just because the team's losing 4 out of the last 5 does not mean they're bad. It just means they probably run into a rough shot in this league, because there are no gimmies. And this will be an interesting game to see how UCF responds. I am not happy that this is a 7:00 tip. Nick, that nobody should have reached out to us and told us if this was allowed. Nick's going to be at the Royal Rumble while this game is going on. I will be hosting the softball opening night dinner. Why is this game at 7:00? It's not linear. Put this in the afternoon. I love the 4:00 Saturday games. Why are we doing this at night? That's an outrage. So that's my big beef. All right, with this matchup.
Yeah, I feel the same way. No, 4:00's nice. You get the game done in the morning or around the afternoon when you're kind of up for a while, and then you have all night to do whatever you want.
7:00 Saturday. What are we doing? Come on, Cincinnati.
By the way, By the way, Bryson Turner parachuting in to remind us that college basketball journeyman Jameel Reynolds, remember him? He's a Cincinnati Bearcat now. He went to Cincinnati from Temple, where he was prior to, and before, of course, he was at UCF prior to that for 2 seasons. After that, in comes Baylor, and they've lost 2 in a row. They've lost both of them on the road. To K-State and Texas. This Saturday, they've got TCU at home before they come here on Wednesday. So, Eric, what's your read on Baylor? Because we talked about, it's going to be, it feels like it's going to be a flip because you go from Cincinnati, a classic Cincinnati highly efficient defensive team, to Baylor, who right now is 5th in the country in offensive efficiency. And
they shoot the 3 really well. They are a good 3-point shooting team. It's very similar to BYU, not the same style, but they have more individual talent. They have arguably the best pro prospect in the Big 12. That's going to be probably a lottery pick in the NBA draft on their team. I mean, you mentioned the losses. It's worth mentioning that Kansas State was an overtime loss, and the Texas game was a buzzer beater. So, it wasn't like, they were right there. They could have easily won those 2 games, but they're really good. I think, to me, the Big 12, it's Kansas, Houston, Baylor probably is your top 3 teams when all is said and done in this league. But I expect another great crowd for UCF. I promise UCF fan, I can promise you this. UCF will not blow a 28-point lead in this basketball game. I can assure you of that. We will not have to worry about that in this arena. So bring it out, go dress up, pack the house, because home court advantage does make a difference, doesn't it, Nick? Because all the visiting coaches have talked about that. Mark Pope from BYU, Bill Self of Kansas, the atmosphere. They've noticed the atmosphere, and that does make help the UCF from that standpoint, because this is a league where you have to protect the home court and try to steal a game or 2 on the road.
100% it affects it. I mean, earlier when we were talking about the West Virginia game and I was talking about Raekwon Battles getting upset and arguing with the refs, part of that, yes, was UCF's physical defense. The other part was just, I think, was just the crowd was getting in his head. I really believe that. I think that's even what they said on the broadcast. So 100%, the feed of Franz, that's been working. A lot of missed free throws on the other team. And I just think it gets the players going. Like, it sounds simple to say, you do better at home, but big crowds make a difference for this team. And also, it makes my job of covering those games fun. So, yes, please keep coming out.
All right. Baylor, we're doing another block party for that game on Wednesday night, too. Baylor, 7 p.m. Big 12 now, ESPN Plus, Wednesday, January 31st. Cincinnati, Saturday, January 27th.
Jacoby Walters, the name to remember for Baylor. That's the kid that's probably going to be an NBA lottery pick. A lot of people believe he could be really good at the next level. That's the name to watch. Years from now, you might say you saw Jacoby Walter, who ended up being a lottery pick in person. So he's really good, freshman.
Nick and Eric, you think we can get a split out of this one?
I'd take it. I'll say that.
I think we all would.
Well, no, but that's the deal, right? You kind of take them in increments. I mean, the Cincinnati game, certainly credit to Cincinnati and Wes Miller and the job he's done. They're a lot better, too, than people thought. So that's going to be a tough game at Cincinnati.
He's done a really good job, Wes. For all the flack he took when he took over from Mick, he's done a good job riding the ship up there.
Well, it helped. He was the guy after the guy that followed Mick Cronin, so that helped.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Want to be the guy after the guy. So that's helped him, and he's obviously done a good job. So yeah, I would take a split. I think look, this team is, I think, earned the right to get some benefit of the doubt that, hey, they could win. It's not like, man, I don't know. Could they win but one of those games? Sure. Could they lose both?
They certainly can defend well enough to. I think the
defense will give them a chance to win. Now, what the offense brings, that remains to be seen. You mentioned the Cincinnati game. That's going to be decided in the glass because both teams, UCF has also been good on the rebounding, especially offensive rebounding. So probably look at the rebounding stats and you'll tell me who wins the Cincinnati game. And then Baylor, that's going to be about pace. That's going to be about tempo. How does UCF guard the three-point line? That'll be a fascinating matchup. We don't know Shamari Allen, as you mentioned earlier, with the injury. How long is he out, if at all?
That plays one that worries me.
So I say I know it's cliche, but Nick is on board with me on this game, taking the game at a time. This is not a league that you can look ahead too far. 4 or 5 games because it's game to game. But I would just say keep splitting. I mean, there's Gary Parrish of CBS Sports said this. Since 2015, every Big 12 team that's finished 500 in conference has made the NCAA tournament. That tells you how much respect this league gets.
Also tells you how hard it is.
And it's how hard it is. So right now, UCF's
you just finished above water, and you're one of the top teams in the country.
Well, I'll give you this stat. I mean, I wrote this on the bannerette on the recap of the Houston game. UCF still, as of now, has projected 9 quad 1 games left in the schedule. 9.
Wow.
In comparison, the last 2 years, they had 9 games total quad 1 games. Tells you how now the bad news is that's a lot of games against really good teams. The good news is it's a lot of games against good teams, which means you can improve your resume every game without getting hurt too much. That's the exciting thing. The Houston loss a year ago would have hurt big time because that's one of 2 games that you could help your resume in the American. In the Big 12, it's just another marquee game. So I think this team has a chance to be a postseason team, which would be incredible if they were a postseason team. I'm not going to say the 4-letter postseason. I think we're way too early for that. But I think the other postseason one could have a shot. I mean, I think, to me, if they can get 6 wins in the Big 12, 7 might get them an NIT bid, which I think would be a success. But a long ways to go, obviously, to get that.
Yeah. I'm actually just looking at that one right now. You're looking at they only have 2 no more quad 4s, 2 quad 3s. That's at Oklahoma State and at West Virginia. 3 quad 2s. Consider that these are considered sort of the gimmies in context. Texas Tech, Oklahoma, Cincinnati. And those are quad 2s because they're home games. And then your remaining quadrant 1 games, like you were mentioning, Eric. Houston at BYU, Iowa State, Baylor at Texas Tech, at Cincinnati, at TCU. Whew, man.
Incredible. But hey, it's fun. It's opportunities. And
we're 2 and 4 in quad 1 so far. Just saying.
Yeah, 2 wins. So we'll see. That's the key.
And 10 and 1 so far in quad 3 and quad 4. That's another one.
Yeah, that one really stings, though.
That one sucks. Yeah,
because UCF's probably in the 50s in the net, 40s probably if they don't lose that. But it is what it is. So, yeah, it's fun, man. Look, it's fun. I don't think people thought we'd be having this type of conversation at this point in January, to the point where we have coaching news in football. We decided, no, we're going to push that back because this basketball team has earned – no, I'm serious. Basketball's earned being the top story, not football off-season stuff. And I think that's a credit to Coach Dawkins and the staff and those players for playing hard, and the fans have bought into it. And let's hope for the best moving forward.
Fair. All right. All right. So let's move over. Actually, let's do that right now. Let's go talk about the football.
Let's say goodbye to Nick.
He's going to travel. Nick. That's right. Nick, you're heading back down home to Tampa for the
Royal Rumble.
You're going to the Royal Rumble.
Yes, sir.
Oh man.
Hey,
will
Nick,
The Rock be there? Who will win?
Nick, do me a favor. If The Rock shows up, boo the heck out of him and just boo him out. So he's going to ruin WrestleMania. Just boo him and say the UFL sucks.
Yeah, I'll boo him for us, Jeff, for getting rid of the Guardians.
Yeah. There we go.
Ditching our beloved Orlando Guardians. All right,
safe travels, sir.
All right,
Nick, you be safe out there. All right, let's talk a little football. Some coaching news that we got to update you here on UCF. So, started last week with Ted Roof joining as a defensive coordinator. Interestingly enough, Ted Roof, this is his second stint as a defensive coordinator at UCF. His first one lasted 3 months in the beginning of, I think, what was it, Eric? 2011.
2011. O'Leary.
Didn't even coach a game.
Nope,
right?
33 days. Yeah, I think it was like a month, literally. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now hopefully he'll have a chance to actually coach for UCF on the field. He has his tie to Gus Malzahn. They won a national title together at Auburn. He comes over from Oklahoma, interestingly enough. So yeah, I mean, and the guy one thing he is actually known for, at least from what his teams have done, they force turnovers. and they're very good at rushing defense. So that hopefully solves two issues that UCF had defensively right there. Now, some news that dropped earlier today as we is another coordinator move. Tim Harris Jr., remember him? He is coming back to UCF as a co-offensive coordinator and wide receiver coach, previously at Miami. Darren Hinshaw will remain on staff as co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. Harris, was with UCF for 2 years. The offensive numbers were pretty solid under him. But Eric, I want to see, as we look at this, we know Tim Harris obviously is also a great recruiter. He was previously a running backs coach at UCF, coached Isaiah Bowser and RJ Harvey. He is, of course, the son of Tim Harris, legendary high school coach at Miami. By all accounts, obviously really enjoyed his time when he was here at UCF. But Eric, I want to kind of zoom out a little bit on the nature of really all these moves. What's the big picture right now? Because, when you're moving coordinators around, hiring guys, moving guys over, I think there is a little bit of concern out there amongst the fans about the offensive staff and like what's going on here. But I don't know. What's your read on this? Because is it turmoil, or is it just kind of cleaning things up a little bit? I can't tell.
I think it's Gus going all in on 2024. I don't think he was happy with last season, how it played out. I think you look at this upcoming season. KJ Jefferson comes over, veteran quarterback. RJ Harvey's back for another last year, running back. You've got Kobe Hudson. You got the offensive line. It's a veteran group here in the offense. You're going to have to rebuild it probably after this year. I think they're all in. They feel they can compete in the Big 12 and make a big splash. And I think that's a factor in some of this stuff.
When you say compete in the Big 12, are you saying conference championship game?
Oh, yeah. Jerry's World. Jerry's World. Get to Jerry's World and have a shot to put to the playoff. I don't think Gus is about, hey, let's think about 5 years from now or 10 years from now. He wants to win now. And I think he feels he has the tools to win now, whether you agree. And he feels by tweaking and doing what he's doing with the staff, he feels that will help that. An example, the Ted Roof situation is certainly, hey, let's bring a veteran defensive mind to go along with our youngster in Addison Williams, who's learning on the fly. That's an example. I think it seems like and again, Gus is going to speak to the media Friday and all that, so we'll probably get more answers, but I would assume he's thinking Darren Hinshaw did a great job with John Rice Plumlee as the quarterback coach. I want to make sure he's locked in on that and not have to be divided in attention between play calling and quarterback development and things like that. Especially think about with Jefferson as your starter this year. Who's behind him for the future? A couple of freshmen. Colson. E.J. Colson, even Troillo. Let's not forget him. That's a young group that needs to be developed as a quarterback. And I think that's where Darren probably comes in. Dylan Risk, another young kid. So I think there's a lot of that things in play there for Gus and UCF to think about. But clearly he's had a lot of thought in this. This is not just out of thin air. And whether you agree with it or not, I admire what Gus, thinking that last year was a disappointment. And whether you agree with it or not, that's how he feels.
I mean, I was happy. I told everybody within earshot, Eric, I was happy with 500 in a bowl game first year because I wrote previously earlier this week while I was a little bit late up on blackandgoldbanneret.com that you have to analyze this through the lens of the history of teams that have gone from the G5 to the P5, right? It took TCU 3 years, and they were like the class of the Mountain West. People remember Boise State and everything, but TCU really owned the Mountain West when they were there. And then they move up to the Big 12. It took them 3 years to actually get a shot at the Big 12 championship. And this is in a smaller Big 12 than the one that we're going to be playing in next year. Utah took about 5 years to get really competitive in the Pac-12. And since then, we've seen, if we're using those teams as a model for what UCF can do, those teams have had, on average, they've competed for a spot or earned a spot in the conference championship game on average since then once every 4 years, once every recruiting cycle. So now, but the calculation's a little bit different now because you have Colorado, you have Arizona coming in, you got Arizona State, you got Utah. This is going to be hard. Like, and is once every 4 years kind of the right idea? You go to bowl games the other 3 years, but once every 4 years, you just hit on a class, you get a bunch of veterans that just come together at the right moment, and you have that kind of a season. Or like, is that where the expectation should be calibrated?
Well, here's the thing. The problem with comparing this to the other teams that join power conferences, it's a different landscape now. There was no transfer portal back then. That's the difference. There is no like, hey, let's rebuild it and we'll be good in 3 years. Now, UCF's got some young talent for the next couple of years, but there's no guarantees who's going to be here, who's not the next couple of years because of the portal. It's become a year-to-year sport. It's become professional sports. Where, in fact, even more movement because at least in professional sports, you have a multi-year contracts in a lot of cases. But here, some guys could leave after a year. So, and look, Gus is not he's not a 25-year-old. He's not interested. He doesn't know what's going to happen in 10 years from now or 20 years from now or 5 years from now. He's worried about now and this year. And I think most of the sport is thinking that way now. It's hard to say, hey, let's build it for 4 or 5 years from now because people aren't patient anymore. Fans aren't going to be patient. Boosters aren't going to be patient. Players aren't patient. If they don't play right away, they bolt. That's where we're at. It's a hard – I don't think it's an accident that you've got coaches like Nick Saban retiring in football, Jay Wright in basketball. This is the new world of college athletics, and a lot of coaches either adapting to it or getting out of it.
I still think that it's you talk about the portal, but the portal is the same for everybody, and it's not the be all. It's not the cure all, right? I think everyone talks about the portal in particular is like, oh, it's changed everything. Well, yes, it has changed a number of things, but not to the catastrophic extent that I think people are making it out to be. Because the fact is, Elo, there's still only 85 scholarships on a program. The best teams can't hoover up everybody.
Well, ask Ohio State that. They've gotten Alabama's best defensive player. They've got Kansas State starting quarterback. They got another running back. Some can. Now, whether
but a lot of them, they're not going to play. And so, like you said, like if they're not going to play, even if they're at Ohio State, guys transfer out of Ohio State if they can't play.
Right. But the problem that we're seeing this back and forth battle with the NCAA. What's the future of the rule of the transfer? If it used to be you could sit out, right? Or you could sit out after a second visit. After that, okay, if that goes away, a player can go to an Ohio State, play a year, and if he doesn't like it, he can go to another school. He can play for 3-4 schools. That is different. It used to be you have to sit out if you transfer. Not anymore, possibly, depending where this is all.
You see that one guy who's got a 9th year of eligibility, who was that one tight end kid?
Yeah, I did see that.
Now, part of that was injuries, right? Yeah,
sure.
I mean,
sure.
The McCormick kid, but at some point, it's like, son, you need to join the workforce.
Right.
How
but look, I mean, but you might want to move on.
Are you obtaining here?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. But this is. You look at what UCF and Gus, they're aggressive in the portal. They've gotten some defensive players. They've developed a nice farm system from Cincinnati who keeps giving them their player. That's great. But they got KJ Jefferson, who's here for 1 year. That's the lay there. So it changes a lot of things. And look, football as you've mentioned, football can't fail across the country, right? Football cannot fail. It's the same here. Got to win, got to produce. Because if you don't, people stop caring about it, or at least attending, and that's money. So it's a moneymaker, and that's the price that comes with it. Yeah. And Gus clearly, I think Gus likes this roster. I think he liked the roster last year. I really do think he was disappointed in the season last year. I think he really thought they can compete right away based on how he had built that roster. Didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, the injuries obviously played a factor in that too. I mean, it's easy to – you could what-if yourself to death on the 3 games that were decided by 4 points total. right? Especially obviously the Baylor game, the Oklahoma game with the 2-point conversion, Texas Tech, you lose on a blocked extra point. I get that, right? Flip those 3 results, you're 9-3. But it's kind of similar to what we were talking about earlier in basketball. Like, it is this hard for a reason in the Big 12. Like, this is a bigger leap. That last year was a bigger leap than UCF has ever made from any level to any previous level. In fact, I would argue jumping from the American to the Big 12 in terms of overall competition level was a larger jump than if you than the cumulative effect of D1 independent to the American, skipping the Conference USA part in the process, right? Like, it was a larger jump in competition level. So
sure,
it's hard. And listen, coaches are competitive. I get that, right? Newsflash, okay. It's fine for them to be impatient as long as they're making the progress in the right spots. And we have every reason to believe that Gus is. I just hope that the fans understand.
No, they won't. No, that with a 12-team playoff, you could forget about that now. That's gone. That you better say bye-bye to that. With a 12-team playoff, every fan base now expects to make the playoff. That's going to be the big difference.
Even Kent State?
Yes. Yeah, because you can get that group of 5 ranking. Yes, that's the thing. It reminds me now when basketball expanded the basketball tournament to 68. It's like, well, now you should make the NCAA tournament and coaches get in the hot seat.
Well,
I actually think 12 is more pressure. And I think that's the other reason why Gus is doing this. He knows to make the playoff, he might have a better chance in 2024 than 2025. Because 2025, he's probably going to have a young offense. 2024, he's got this veteran team with a talented quarterback like KJ Jefferson with all the experience he has. And he knows to make the playoff, you probably have to either win the Big 12 automatic or at worst, finish second in that conference. You're not getting 3-4 bids.
I mean, it's hard to say right now in the Big 12 because I still think, we don't know how it's going to shake out. I still think that the Big 12 is going to get 2. Both conference championship participants should get it. Unless it's one of those situations where, like, you get, like, a team that goes, like, 8-4 and somehow sneaks in by going 7-1 in the conference. But
it's realistic.
In terms of overall, I mean, I could, it's good. Again, it just depends on a lot of factors. It depends on what happens in a lot of the other conferences as well. Like, you could conceivably have a Big 12 where, say, I mean, what if UCF goes 10-2 and ends up in a 3-way tie at 8-1 in the Big 12 and just so happens to be on the outs because of a tiebreaker? Like, you think the playoff would keep them out?
Yes.
I mean,
yes, absolutely.
I don't think we can say that because what did the ACC do? What did the SEC do? What did the Big 10 do?
I think we know what the SEC and the Big 10 is going to do. They're going to get the benefit of the doubt. That's the key. That's the difference. Look at the rankings last year. Look at the way who's running the sport. Those 2 conferences in particular is going to get the benefit of the doubt. Jed Fish basically said that in his press conference at Washington is one of the reasons why he left Arizona, a team that would have been the favorites to win the Big 12, to go to Washington because he felt there's an easier path to the playoff in the Big 10 than there is in the Big 12 from the standpoint of getting an at-large spot because the Big 10 and the SEC are going to gobble up the at-large spots. A 9-3 Oklahoma or Alabama, Georgia is going to get in over a 10-2 Big 12 team. That's a lock. Book it. And so
I don't think that's as much of a lock.
Ask Florida State about it. Because I'm telling you, that's just the tip of the iceberg on where this is headed.
Listen, their excuse on Florida State is always going to be, well, Jordan Travis was hurt.
Hey, they can make up a lot of excuses. If you want to leave a team out, you can come up with a lot of things. So I'm just telling. But again, you don't have to worry about it if you win the league. And I think that's kind of the point that I'm making with UCF there. And Gus feels he can compete this year. We'll find out. It'll be interesting. The schedule will come out Tuesday. The Big 12 should come out with a schedule. So that'll be interesting to see. They'll have a better feel for that But that's where
Also
the
going to see
landscape
where they, how the home road, sort of
Yep.
chronology goes. Where's the bye week?
Well, and I think the other reason why there's a little urgency from Gus, the schedule is much more favorable from a traveling standpoint. Remember, you have 5 home games this year versus 4 in 2025. Less travel. I think you only leave the East time zone in 2024 3 times versus all the times you might have to down the road with all the West Coast teams and Midwest and all that. So it is shaping up to be a favorable schedule in a lot of ways, not to mention Florida and the car crash that is right now. Holy smokes. I mean, Billy Napier may not even make it to the UCF game at the rate they're going.
I was going to say, is it really that bad?
Oh,
already?
yeah.
They're out on Napier already?
Oh, yeah. They would.
Why?
Because he hasn't done any favors. He has not made himself very friendly to the media or the fans, and that's a big no-no. And they haven't won. And they haven't won anything. Like, they've been under 500 both his years that he's been there. And it is not pretty there at all. And now that you look at Florida's schedule,
who are they going to get, man? Who are they going to get?
Well, I think they were in the target for Jed Fish. Because Jed Fish is an alum, was on the Steve Spurrier staff way back in the day. That's how he got his start in coaching. That might have been throwing a monkey wrench. I don't think they care about who's the next guy. I think they just want Billy Napier gone. And I do wonder if Scott Strickland will even be able to make that next hire. It hasn't gone well for him either.
Let me tell you something, man. That's one of those programs that's too big to fail.
Well, look at that schedule in 2024. They might fail a few times in 2024.
Too big to fail, man. They just
Miami, UCF, Florida State all on the schedule. They got to go to Texas. They got to play Georgia, LSU. I mean, it is unbelievable gauntlet that they're going to have, and I don't think they
wouldn't it be fun. Wouldn't it be fun if we go up there to Gainesville and handle them and just drop a few more nails in the coffin of that program?
I think that'll be the expectation to some of the fans. I know it will be to Bryson. He wants to rub it into
I'm reluctant to use the E word there, Eric.
What's the E word?
Expectation.
That's probably going to be the expectation.
I mean, it's still a hard place to play.
Oh, it is.
Florida's still going to be favored in that game. Okay.
Well, let's see how they start. That could be a pickup, depending on how both teams start. Could be It also depends on the kickoff time. I mean, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. But point is, big year ahead. Big year and ahead. And I think that's why Gus is making a lot of these moves that we're seeing.
All right. Let's hop over to women's hoops real quick. And I want to get Bryson up in here. And golly, Bryson, this team, they just can't buy one. Lost to TCU by 6 in a game that it looked like they had it. Lost to Baylor by 3 in Baylor. They're now 9-8, and they're off to it. It breaks my heart. They're 0-7 in the Big 12, and it just feels like they just need something to break their way, right? And they just haven't gotten it. They lose to Cincinnati by 1, lost at Baylor by 3. The TCU game, they had a lead late in the fourth quarter and couldn't get it done. Now they have the space game on Saturday, January 27th. I was talking to some folks. I thought that the plot of the women's basketball season and the men's basketball season, the Big 12, was reversed from expectations. I thought the men's team was really going to scuffle and just not be able to buy one, and that the women would have been able to steal a few. And so far, it's kind of been the other way around. Now they do get Houston on Saturday, 2 p.m., followed by Tuesday. They're at West Virginia, another ranked team. I just where is this team right now, Bryson? Because we've seen this play out before. It's like sometimes you lose a few close games and all of a sudden sort of the bottom falls out, but they don't seem to. They seem to be still fighting here. Can they get this game against Houston, finally get in the win column in the Big 12?
I think they can. I actually think that they show genuine improvement. Like the difference between this team before Baylor and then going into Baylor, like the team I saw against West Virginia was completely different from the team I saw against Baylor, because for one, they are absolutely decimated in the front court right now because Jayla Kelly got hurt in the Cincinnati game. Now she's back on the court, but she's not really getting any meaningful minutes right now. Ashol Akot has vanished from the court. She wasn't playing in the Baylor game, and then she came back in the TCU game and only played about 5.5 minutes. So I don't know what's going on with that, but the point is that Kayala Ngodu is like the only big they have right now. So they have to play a lot of small ball. And the fact that they're still even close to Baylor and TCU, I think, is a marked improvement from what we saw against West Virginia. The other thing, Caitlin Peterson is now starting to just become an absolute star for this. We're getting the scoring that she's doing for this team, she's practically on the court the entire time. And
she's averaging 37 minutes a game, and she's 21.2 points.
That's Perry Phillips.
4.6 rebounds. She's hitting 36% from three-pointers. The second leading scorer is Maya Burns, and Maya's under 10.
Yeah, the big difference is that before Baylor, Caitlin Peterson was just doing all of this by herself, completely all on her own. She was carrying this team on her back. Again, we're looking at that 21.2 scoring average that she has right now is like Terry Phillips territory from 1990 to 1991. And she played in the WNBA. So but what we saw against Baylor and TCU is Maya Burns has stepped up to actually get on her level. And because of that, of course, that helps draw a couple of people away, because once KP is able to get all that pressure off of her, she's finally able to do her thing. And you look at her now, she got 32 against Baylor and then 22 against TCU. And even Maya Burns was right with her in that game with 17. And also, special props to Kayala Ngodu, freshman big. She's practically the only big they have right now because every other one is pretty much hurt. So so she's been doing very well in a freshman capacity. I think that this team really needs to do two things. One, they need to stick it out. If they need to stick it out like this, if those front court players are not going to be healing up to 100% anytime soon, I think you got to keep honing what they're doing now, because if you're doing this on the road against ranked teams like Baylor and TCU, and don't let TCU's injuries fool you, they're still a very good team. And those
whoa, hold on, you go, hold on.
Look, okay, yeah, I'm ready for Eric to get in this.
Are you kidding me? TCU was without their three best players. They had 7 scholarship players. They played a volleyball player. A volleyball player got minutes on the court.
They forfeited 2 games. They did not having players.
That volleyball player only played like 1 minute for the record. Everybody else that saw the court against UCF in Fort Worth was on this team that was ranked like 38 in the net before everything. They were there during
without their 3 best players. We don't know what they're going to be like moving forward. They changed their whole. Thanks to your tweet, I watched the fourth quarter of that game when you were giving updates. The broadcast was talking about the coach literally has changed his entire offense because this team is completely different than what he's had.
Eric, didn't I hear a story? Is this true that they brought 3 of the walk-ons they brought in were all teammates on a state championship high school team?
Yes,
that's why they brought him in.
It's the craziest story that I have seen. I've never seen.
How does a team collapse? How does the roster collapse like that?
Thank you for asking the question. That's the right question to be asking. And if this was a men's team, they would be getting constantly scrutinized to find that answer out. But hey, it's a women's team, so let's just celebrate the effort. That's what I don't even get me started on that story, because that story has gotten a pass. Because I agree with you. How have you gotten that many injuries? Blows my mind away. Point is, that was a great opportunity UCF let slip away. They had a lead in that fourth quarter, and they let it slip away. The Baylor game, you're right. They played very well. Peterson, in particular, played incredible in that game. Baylor couldn't stop her. But they need more help. And I think the question is, when you've lost this many games, is it psychological? if it's close in the fourth quarter, can they get over the hump or do they not? Because they got blitzed 10-0 to end that TCU game. That one stung. And Houston, you know, Jeffrey, who the coach is in Houston.
Yeah.
And you know what? Yeah. He likes to press.
That's our boy. That's our boy, Ron.
Ron Huey, former assistant at UCF. That will not be easy. He's going to press UCF. UCF better protect the basketball if they want to win Saturday. And look, it's an opportunity to win. I do agree. That's a great opportunity for them to win. But psychologically, if it's close, who other than Peterson makes a play late? Who gets that big rebound? Who makes the big basket? I think that's the big question with them.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think that's kind of been the difference between the men and the women, right? The women have relied almost too much on Caitlin Peterson. God bless her. She's been carrying the load, but the men, it's different. Right. I mean, Maya's there, but let's face it, KP's averaging more than twice as many points as she is and shooting the ball a lot. And who is going to be the ones who step up and take some of that load off of her, right? One player can only do so much on that floor. I mean, go ahead, unless you're Caitlin Clark, in which case you can do it all. But one player can only do so much. And, injuries being what they are, I mean, like you were saying, Bryson, it's tough, with a lot of that front court. I think that, that those front court injuries really have been the difference. And in close games, rebounding defense, that's the key, but they got to find a way. They got to find a way against this team. And Houston, by the way, right now in the standings, 2-6, in the Big 12, same as TCU. It still blows my mind that TCU started the season 14-0, but
that's
Houston
the wildest story. Have you ever seen a story like that, Jeff? In all your years, seriously,
I have never seen a roster get depleted so quickly, so perfect. First of all, it makes me wonder, how many players did you have on the roster to start the season to begin with? Okay, and second of all, what is up with your training staff? Like, what is going on?
What's going on with the practices? What are you doing? What is it, Pat Riley?
Yeah.
What are you doing, Pat Riley camp? Like practice style here?
The closest thing I've seen to this, like I've seen like once or twice, like a team had guys foul out to the point where they could only have 4 guys out there on the floor. I think I've seen that like twice. I remember Eric, you and I remember fondly back when we were young whippersnappers living in South Florida. You remember the Rex Chapman game?
Yes, I do. Against the Bulls, yeah.
Against the Bulls, against the 72-win Bulls. They played the Heat, who had just made I think 2 or 3 trades that day. And it just so happened that none of those guys could fly in time. And so they played the Bulls in Miami Arena with 7 guys on the roster and beat them. And Rex had over 40 in that game, I think. I think he hit like 6 or 7 threes. I can't remember. But that's not forfeiting 2 games because you don't have enough players.
I'll be honest. When I first heard about it, I thought they had a COVID case situation. That was the only thing
that was my first thought. Right? I was like, there's an illness just ripping through, because that's happened.
Yes, that we've seen that. Heck, it's happened to UCF too during that COVID year. So I thought that's what it was. And I remember me and Bryson talked about this last week because TCU forfeited those 2 games. We wondered if maybe they'd be able to even play against UCF. Clearly what it looked like is they knew that they were probably not going to win those 2 games. They forfeited because those 2 teams were better than them anyway. So let's regroup. We'll forfeit those 2 games. It's not going to hurt us that bad, and try to get a roster together by the time we get to UCF. And I think that was part of the strategy. One of the most bizarre stories I can ever remember. And unfortunately, UCF didn't take advantage of that. But I'm curious. You're right. I'm curious to see what happens the rest of the year with TCU. I really am. I just am fascinated. Because some of their players are out for the year. It's not like they're coming back and it's been very sketchy information, but like one of their better players is out for the year. The injury.
Yeah. Owens, the Baylor transfer, she's out for the season with a torn ACL.
Where's Real Sports when you need him, Brian Gumbel? Don't relieve us just yet. Come on, Brian Gumbel.
TCU, by the way, is listed as number 36 in the net currently in women's basketball at the moment.
That is generous.
But again,
but again, it's not a human poll. It's a mathematical poll. So,
but again, a lot of that was done when they actually had a healthy team. We don't know what this team is now moving forward. That's to your point, Jeff. That's what kind of stuck it to Florida State, which was, you have all this great resume, but you don't have your starting quarterback, so we can't put you in the top 4. We don't know who you are. You struggled to score against Louisville, and things like that. I understand. I understood the argument on that, and we'll see what TCU does. So, but again, if you're UCF, from their perspective, close the fourth quarter out. My concern about the Peterson thing, does she wear down? Because the TCU game, she looked like she wore down at the end. She scored 11 first quarter points in that game. TCU made some adjustments. She's carrying way too much of the load. I'm not even just talking about scoring. I'm just talking about literally doing everything. So that's just is what it is.
All right. Well, we'll see. Another familiar foe, space game against Houston, which I like.
KP,
so.
KP. I think I've been saying this, like, her nickname is KP. So I think she needs to find her Ron Stoppable comparison. She needs to find that dynamic duo partner.
Man, Well, we really need it right now against this Houston team. And by the way, UCF right now, but the 4 newcomers in the Big 12 women's basketball standings: BYU at 2-5, Houston 2-6, Cincy 2-5, UCF right now 0-7.
Isn't that fascinating? It's fascinating though that the women's are struggling, but yet the men have done all of BYU's having a great year.
Yeah,
Houston's Houston.
Man, BYU should have beaten Houston. I watched that.
It was a great game. It was a great game, wasn't it?
They had a 3 to tie the game.
Yeah.
In the final minute and couldn't put it down. And credit to Houston for closing out, right?
Yeah.
But BYU, they fought back. I think they were down 16. They fought back, made it a game. I felt like if you're BYU, you're like, man, we left that one on the table.
But everybody in the Big 12.
That's a good basketball team.
It's just another night in the Big 12. But it is interesting. The men's, BYU's having a great year. Houston's having a great year. Cincinnati, UCF are playing well. The women's, they're all strong. It's just interesting that one is doing okay, better than people thought, and the women's have struggled. That's fascinating to me. I don't have a theory. I don't know why, but it's just fascinating. That's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, what do we have in common with TCU? Injuries, although not quite to that extent.
Does that mean we're getting we getting a volleyball player on the roster?
They're concentrated on the position group that doesn't need them. What it is.
Yeah. Can Emily Wilson have a mid-range jump shot? Can we get Emily Wilson on the team? No.
Let's get Abby Hansen out here. Pull her over from the Valkyries, right? So
yeah.
All right. Let's move along. We got so Bryson. We have a couple things that we wanted to talk about. Your nightcap's going to be coming up here on Friday. Men's tennis off to a good start, 4-0. So that's actually fun to see. Women's tennis also underway, but I really want to talk about track and field because they've started the indoor season, and Renaya Jones is just doing Renaya Jones things. Okay, so let's talk about Renaya real quick. First 2-3 meets of the indoor season. What's the status on Renaya Jones?
Renaya Jones is channeling her 2022 indoor season, in which she made it to the indoor NCAA championship, which, by the way, doesn't have preliminaries like the outdoor one does. So This is a much harder
one and done
championship. This is a much harder one for you to make. And so as of right now, Renaya Jones has the 5th fastest 60-meter hurdle time in the nation right now at 8.03, because they actually adjusted it because of altitude. Apparently, Lubbock, Texas, where they did this, apparently is high enough in altitude that the software adjusts it by a little. So, but we have that. She's 10th in the country in the 60-meter dash, also in Lubbock. And then she got the 27th 200-meter dash time in the country in a meet the week before in Louisville. So she is getting off to a really, really good start right now. Like, we talk about track, and how you have to peak at the right time. And if you want to peak at the right time to do the stuff that Renaya Jones really wants to accomplish by the end of her career, because this is it for her, this is the start that you want to have.
The Big 12 indoor championships are not until the end of February 23rd. So we're seeing a lot of the team kind of split up right now. The distance runners are at Bob Pollock at Clemson this coming weekend. Sprinters and field are going to be at Harvard, and then Boston College on February 2nd and 3rd. One more against Clemson. They split up the weekend of the 9th and the 10th, and then 2 weeks off in the Big 12 Indoor Championships, February 23rd and 24th, followed by of course, the NCAA's on March 8th and 9th. So, as we saw, before in the American, Bryson, this thing ramps up real quick. Let's hop over to tennis right now. The men off to a historic start, 4-0 for the first time since 1999. What's been the key to them so far?
Singles play. They have not actually won a doubles point yet, which is something
that's so.
Yeah, they have not won one yet, which is amazing. Now, it doesn't mean that they're getting blitzed, by the way, because if I'm remembering right, they have won one. The big thing with the doubles point is that you have 3 matches. Whoever wins 2 of the 3 does it. They've won 1. So I think they're right there. But the fact that they've lost the doubles point and essentially have to have one hand behind their back, in a sense, going into singles play, means the singles play, they're doing a very great job. 5th year Leighton Cronji, great job. Big 12 men's tennis player of the week.
Yeah.
Great job from him. Mehdi Benchakroon and UT Arlington transfer, Santiago G. Michel, doing a great job. Like, this is a very deep men's tennis team, which is funny because this is something I've said about the women's team before, is that while the top isn't like astound me too much, it's the depth that really gets me, because they've been switching out, actually, like Liam Branger and Paul Collin and all of that. So like, I think every one of these players has a shot at beating the player across from them, which is really saying something.
Yeah.
Now, it's a bit of a soft schedule to start, Wilmington, Coastal, North Florida, all that. But I think this is kind of like, you really want to warm these players up before you get into the harder portion of the schedule, which will come later. They have Miami, they got Florida, but considering that this is the best start they've had since 2 head coaches ago, which is this is the
Bobby Cashman.
This was before Cashman. This was the coach.
This was before Bobby?
This was the one season. Remember the name Michael Dublin? It's the one ever,
Nope.
the one. Exactly, because he only coached for 1 season. And that was the 1 season in 1999 that he got the team off to a start like that. So when you're in that company, you're doing something right.
The women are also off to a 1-0 start, and they got a big dub at the USTA. Swept Georgia Tech. Number 20 coming in, Georgia Tech. 4-0 UCF beats them. And they got the ITA kickoff weekend coming up. They're at Oklahoma, and then they play either Cal or Illinois. They're actually going out to Norman for the first time in a while that we haven't hosted anything on ITA kickoff weekend, men's or women's, which I think is interesting. But the women got that win over Georgia Tech, pushed them into the ITA top 25. They're at 23 right now. Not too much we can glean from this, right, Bryson? But it's nice to beat a ranked team, isn't it?
Oh, yes. But I will say this. One thing that this team did not have last year, and all props, by the way, go to Marie Mattel, who played on court 1 for the team last year. She's a great tennis player, but she hasn't won all the time there. Olivia Linser, true freshman that Brian Kanyeko has brought in. He sticks her at court 1 right away, and she got a set over the ITA All-American last year, number 107 ranked player in the country, Carol Lee. She beat her in the first set, and they were tied at 5 in the second set before the match finished up. But the fact that she had the advantage going in and could have won that match, I think speaks a lot for the talent that Linser has, and a great get by the likes of Brian Kanyeko. And then, like I mentioned, kind of with the men, the women are a very deep team. This is a team that can really get you on courts like 3, 4, 5, 6. So while they don't have the highest of highs as some other programs might have, their weakest link is much better than I think another team's weakest link is. And it also definitely helps that they're doing a little better on the doubles front too, because they got the doubles point against Georgia Tech, which definitely helped them get out on a good start.
See their schedule ramp up real quick with the ITA kickoff weekend on the women's side. The men, by the way, they play Florida Gulf Coast at USTA on Saturday, the 27th at noon. They have 5 straight matches against teams from the state of Florida before they play at UAB on February 25th. That's a month from now. So that's kind of nice. You don't have to leave the state until basically a month from now. Fantastic. All right. Last little bit. We got something I wanted to mention here. Of course, you guys know volleyball is near and dear to my heart. The Orlando Valkyries start play this weekend. And Eric Lopez and Bryson Turner, it's a big moment for pro volleyball, because not only are the Valkyries starting up with Abby Hansen, but also they're playing against the Atlanta Vibe in their opener at home at Edition Financial Arena on the campus of UCF against head coach Todd Dagenet. He's the head coach of the Atlanta team. Eric, I'm going to go to the match, but this is weird. It's going to be really weird.
Right, it's going to be at Edition Financial Arena, right?
Yeah.
And you're not doing PA. You're going.
No, I'm not doing PA. No, Jake is going to be
all of this is very bizarre. You guys, that's
volleyball.
I'm proud of Jacob, man. That kid's great.
No, Jacob's my man. Just save your voice, Jacob. When a couple of weeks from now, buddy, we got softball season. We need that's when it matters. All right, with all due respect to the Orlando team. But, yeah. We'll see what happens. Obviously, indoor volley pro league starting this week. We'll see how this goes. It hasn't been tried before in the United States, and that's obviously a big thing Todd's involved in. So we'll see what happens with it. Obviously, it's with every new league, you just kind of see how it goes, and is there patience? Is there process, or do people lose patience? We'll see what happens. What I don't question will be the product on the court. With all these pro leagues, volleyball here, the product will be fine on the court. What happens around it will dictate whether it's successful or not.
Yeah.
Omaha at least drew a very good crowd. Over 11,000 people.
Omaha will draw 10,000 for a volleyball scrimmage. I mean, they're a bad example.
Yeah, remember Nebraska? What did Nebraska get? 90,000 in the football stadium.
Yeah, I mean,
volleyball match there.
They're in Omaha. There's nothing to do in Omaha.
I mean, I still vividly remember I was sitting in the venue with Coach Dagenet doing an interview with him, like a longer form type thing. And I remember vividly asking him about playing volleyball in Edition Financial Arena, because it hadn't happened for UCF to that point. But the NCAA tournament, if they get far enough, you could do that.
Yeah, it was a possibility.
I asked him about, the possibility of doing that, and he said that he loves it in the venue, but it would certainly be really cool to have a volleyball game in there. And look at that. Edition Financial Arena is finally hosting a volleyball game, and Todd Dagenet is going to be there on court.
Well, I think for UCF, I mean, the whole thing is for UCF volleyball is that atmosphere in the venue is not replicable in Edition Financial Arena, because it's tight, it's loud, it's the fans are on top of you. But for a pro team, they should be at Edition Financial Arena. So I'm going to be really looking forward to that. That match is going to be on Friday night, 7 p.m. at Edition Financial. It's the Orlando Valkyries against the Atlanta Vibe. Todd Dagenet, the Atlanta Vibe, against the hometown Orlando Valkyries. All right. With that, it's going to do it for us. Looks like we're all set now. Bryson, a couple things we got. Bryson and Eric, I should say, a couple things we got coming down the pike here. The nightcap is coming around the bend as well for Friday. Also, Bryson, you got your golf previews coming up as golf gets ready to start here. Look for those on blackandgoldbanneret.com. Also, we're going to be following what happens with UCF men's and women's basketball as well this coming weekend. blackandgoldbanneret.com.
Yeah.
Oh, you're home for the UCF Knights.
Oh, baseball, softball too. Little baseball, softball.
That's
around
right,
the
Elo.
corner.
Hey, we're 2 weeks away from softball. Is that right?
That is correct. They'll have their media day Sunday at the Plex Sunday morning. Me and Bryson will be there. I'm hosting the opening night dinner this Saturday night. That'll be a fun event.
Who's going to be there?
A lot of our donors, more importantly, but fans, parents. Montana Fouts, the Alabama superstar player who's played now the U.S. national team. She'll be the guest speaker on the Saturday night there at Doubletree. So that'll be a fun event. And also keep an eye on next week's social media. I've been working with the Big 12 on this. We're going to have like a de facto Big 12 softball media days next week through my softball podcast, In the Circle.
Elo.
All 10 teams represented with the 10 coaches and players from each team. That includes UCF. So be on the lookout for that this upcoming week as part of the Big 12 softball coverage. That's right.
Look at you doing, getting, like softball Woj is at it again.
We're moving. Bryson's going to be involved. He's going to get a piece of the action. He's going to help me get some of the get the player interviews for the media day there. So yeah, Big 12
that. Baby. All right,
pretty important sport, softball.
Hey, shout out to the Big 12 for getting you guys on board on that. It's you got. Listen, folks. For those of you who don't know, and if you don't, where the hell have you been?
Mhm.
Eric owns the not just UCF, but the NCAA softball beat. So props to the Big 12, Eric, for knowing well enough to call you guys in at Fast Pitch News and say, hey, come help us out with this. You guys know what you're doing. You're locked in. It's not that we don't, but we want some legit. They're bringing you guys in for legitimacy, and that's awesome. And props to you guys on that.
Yeah, they're good people.
Eric is like Woj and Joe Lunardi mushed together. I feel like and
yeah, Joe, that is correct. Yes, I'll be doing bracketology this year. This year I'll be on D1 softball. Will be where my bracketology. It's an exclusive here. You're finding on Night Shift. You're this first anybody's heard about it. My bracketology will be on D1 softball this year. So I'm actually technically going to be a colleague of Kendall Rogers of D1 baseball. How about that?
Is that so?
Yeah.
wow.
All right.
Man.
Yeah.
Let's run with it. All right. So we got that. We got all that coming up as well. Make sure you follow us all on social media. blackandgoldbanneret.com, of course, as always. You can also follow us on X, UCF Banneret _SBN. We are on Instagram, Black and Gold Banneret, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, Threads as well. We've been doing a good job of cross-posting over to Threads. We have a pretty good presence over there, Black and Gold Banneret as well. Also, our YouTube channel. Look for Black and Gold Banneret on YouTube for all the latest on that. And then also follow us individually. I'm at Jeff Sharon on Threads. Eric is at Eric Lopez Elo on X. Bryson is at It's Bryson Turner on X. Also, don't forget, by the way, shout out to Nick, who's driving down to Tampa, Nick Porcelli too. And shout out to the student of the game, Kyle Nash, who couldn't be with us tonight. But thanks to him for parachuting in to help me out, the SOTG for the student of the game. He's got Magic stuff to take care of. And also, by the way, there's some NFL stuff you might be keeping an eye on too, as well as we head into championship weekend. And it's all the best, and listen, tremendous thanks to you guys for picking me up while I was sick. We're back in the saddle again. So once again, for all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret and the Night Shift podcast, my name is Jeff Sharon. Enjoy the weekend. Go Knights, charge on. We will see you next week.